In 1775, Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet stating that the freedoms of men can only be maintained by limiting the power of government. The pamphlet was called Common Sense, and today it still is common sense.
I'm April Giarrusso.
I'm Mark Zaccaria. This is Common Sense. Welcome back. If you appreciate the irony that abounds in state government here in Rhode Island, you have come to the right place to see examples of it on display. First, we'll look at the game of musical chairs now in progress between Republicans and Democrats in our state's House of Representatives. Many in both parties have been accused of being interchangeable parts. Now it seems a number of those interchanges are actually taking place. Then we'll look in on the continuing drama of truck tolls in Little Rhodey. We'll explode the myth that repairs to roads and bridges have anything to do with the kabuki theater that's now in progress that is making this unnecessary burden on us inevitable. Then we'll point out an instance of duplication of effort and its attendant double billing that's been raised to a high art at the taxpayer's expense, of course. So get out your wry smile and stay tuned. Later, I will sit in for State Representative Patricia Morgan and conduct this week's in-depth interview. This time, I'll host Ray McKay. He's a well-known conservative and the president of the Rhode Island Republican Association. Together, we will explore the divisive nature of the public discourse in America today and how we as a nation might have gotten to the point of being so at odds about everything. In between segments, April and I will pop back in once or twice to apply a little sarcasm to the proceedings as we ask our favorite question, are you kidding me? The broadcast will conclude as usual with the musings of Portsmouth's pundit Jeff Richard. This week, Jeff reflects on preparing for retirement, hopefully before you actually reach that point in your career. To get all that started though, let's have some analysis of several of the news stories impacting life in Rhode Island this week. What do you say, April?
Let's do it, Mark. With the recent upset of Representative Karen McBeth's switch from the Democrat to Republican Party, you think House Speaker Nicholas Mattiello might feel a little scorned. But it's not getting to him, at least when it comes to hiring a former GOP campaign manager to his House leadership pack. Jeff Britt joined Speaker Mattiello's political operations team despite his last stint as campaign manager for 2014 Republican gubernatorial candidate Ken Block, and the fact that until last December, he was a registered Republican. Now he's an independent. Britt made waves in 2002 when he helped his stepfather, Bruce Bayek, mount a strong write-in campaign against then House Speaker and Democrat John Harwood. Bayek came very close to winning that race. But Britt was not exclusively working for Republican candidates. He had roles in Democrat Frank Caprio's 2010 campaign for governor and was part of Mark Binder's 2012 challenge against Gordon Fox as an independent. Britt's ability to work both sides of the aisle also came in handy when he worked for Republican Governor Don Kucheri as a liaison to the dissident Democrats in the House. Based on his experience, Jeff Britt sounds like a great addition to Mattiello's team, but it's still awkward timing for him to hire a man whose former job was to do, quote, opposition research, unquote, for the state GOP and, according to the Providence Journal, make sure his findings made their way to media outlets. Yet another case of strange bedfellows. Mark?
Thanks, April. In a recent article in Go Local Prov, guest mind setter Brian Bishop offered a detailed proof of the fact that the recent stealth toll road proposal here in the Ocean State was not required for any road or bridge work. He referenced the Republican No Tolls Bridgeworks plan as a viable financing option based on reprioritizing existing spending. He carefully laid out the very high likelihood that any challenge to the trucks-only approach to tolling would probably succeed in federal court. Brian went so far as to raise environmental concerns over the materials, operational emissions, and site impacts of the 20 or more toll gantries proposed in the first round. The money collected from our new tolls will be used, of course, whenever it finally is extracted from your pocketbook and mine. But RIDOT's priority for its use is in a long-term project to replace the 610 connector with a surface boulevard and a web of connecting surface streets. In a recent conference on the subject, which Brian Bishop attended, DOT Executive Director Peter Alviti acknowledged that the 97,000 cars that use the 610 each day right now will have to find other routes, as the capacity of the new boulevard will be far less than that. No formal suggestion of a preferred alternative was offered. In his Go Local piece, Brian focused on the conflicting signals being sent about what road work is actually on the docket. In mine, here today, I'm distracted by the seemingly done deal to spend upwards of $50 million we don't have on an archipelago of toll gantries that we don't seem to need. Is this just simply another tranche of taxpayers' cash being liberally ladled into the trough from which connected insiders feed? Or is it a deep cover operation to install sensors all around the state to facilitate the tracking of all vehicles moving anywhere in Rhode Island? Either way, we don't need it. Either way, we should all heed Representative Pat Morgan's oft-repeated expression, remember in November. April?
One surefire way to burden Rhode Island taxpayers is to pay two people to do the same job. And that's exactly what's happening over at CCRI. Current President Raymond D. Pasquale announced last May that he would not seek to renew his contract with CCRI when it expires on June 30th, 2016. So on February 1st, the college hired a replacement in Megan Hughes. But to ensure a smooth transition between presidents, D. Pasquale is remaining on the payroll with his full pay and benefits as an advisor, and that cost of those 5 months with him as an advisor is $123,728 all included. Hughes started work in February with an annual salary of $250,000 plus $42,000 annually toward her retirement, which means the cost of her first 5 months in office is about $121,638. That means that the state is paying $245,366 so that two people can be working in essentially the same office. I understand the need for a smooth transition, and it is responsible for the school to have leadership ready to hit the ground running when the old order moves on. But I have a hard time believing that there wasn't a more cost-effective way for Hughes to move in as D. Pasquale moved out. William Folks seemed to agree with me on that. He's the chairman of the Council of Post-Secondary Education in the Ocean State. He stated that this transition was the right thing to do, but admitted that he wasn't sure where the money was coming from to pay the two presidents for 5 months. I wouldn't call having multiple presidents an unexpected expense. You've known for almost a year that D. Pasquale was in need of a replacement, so there was nothing unexpected going on. But let's get back to the statement the Providence Journal made on all this. Folks doesn't know where the money was coming from to pay the two presidents. That's the real issue. No one took the time to think this transition through. And unfortunately, this is a reoccurring theme across the board in our state government. People aren't thinking things through, and it is the taxpaying residents of Rhode Island who are always called in, like it or not, to finance this inefficiency. Mark?
Thanks again, April. Now, as we head in the direction of our interview, let's take the roundabout way through a short look at all of what's ahead on this broadcast. After that, we may even send up our first satirical query. Are you kidding me?
According to the Providence Journal, in 2007, the state of Rhode Island had 620 employees making more than $100,000 a year, which equaled about 4% of the state workforce. As of 2016, we're up to 10%. Are you kidding me? This means the number of state employees making six figures has doubled since 2007. So every year budgets go up and people get paid more because obviously each new governor wants to ensure that they keep the best and brightest on the payroll. That's not outlandish to consider. I mean, think about your own employment and how you feel if you don't get a raise each year. But you might be interested to know a couple of things regarding this issue. The highest salaries go to URI President David Dooley, who makes $339,999 a year, and also the URI men's basketball coach, Dan Hurley, who makes a base of $300,000 with sweeteners above and beyond that. In fact, the highest salaries, which were once reserved for the likes of judges and top administrators, are now spread more widely across state government. That includes 11 of the top 20 highest paid salaries going to higher-ups at state colleges. And just to be clear, if you go Googling and see all of the state annual salaries, keep in mind that those numbers do not reflect overtime, so there are sure to be even more people making $100K plus by the end of the year. So obviously I'm doing something wrong. I should have gotten on the state government bandwagon, but given my critique today, I see that as very unlikely for my immediate future. Another important side note I'll mention is that Marie Aberger, Governor Raimondo's spokesperson, said that there are fewer full-time employees in the state government than there were in 2013, and they have worked to merge and eliminate positions that don't make sense in the 21st century government. You know what else doesn't make sense? Eliminating and purging positions and dropping the number of full-time employees, but upping the number of employees making six-figure salaries. I don't understand the balance. Isn't the point in eliminating and merging positions to be cost-effective for government? The number of six-figure salaries is 10%, and that's after purging? Are you kidding me?
April 26th is your chance to vote for who you want to be the Republican nominee for President of the United States. If you need to know your polling location, you can find it online at www.sosri.gov. To vote, complete the arrow pointing to your choice with a single bold line. Vote for your choice for president in the left-hand column. Your vote here also determines how many delegates to the National Convention your choice for president will earn. In Rhode Island, delegates to the National Convention are elected. The remainder of the ballot is for that purpose. This year, we have both a front and back to our ballot. In the center of the front page is the list of delegate candidates for your congressional district. You can select up to 3, and you can select delegate candidates that are not running for your choice for president. Selecting more than 3 will invalidate your vote. Turning the ballot over, you will see statewide delegate candidates. You may select up to 10 delegate candidates. Selecting more than 10 will invalidate your vote, so be careful. Again, you can vote for delegate candidates that are not running to represent your choice for president. In the left-hand column, you will find delegate candidates for Donald Trump. In the center column, you will find delegate candidates for Senator Ted Cruz and Governor John Kasich. In the right-hand column, you will find delegate candidates for Senator Marco Rubio and delegate candidates who are not committed to any candidate. After you've selected your 1 presidential candidate, your 3 congressional district delegate candidates, and 10 statewide delegate candidates, follow the directions at your poll to have your ballot counted, because your vote counts.
Welcome to Common Sense Rhode Island. This is a program where we try to make sense out of the policies that affect your life and come up with common sense solutions. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have with us Doug Ouimette, a small business owner. He actually owns some Subways. And we're going to be talking about the minimum wage and how it affects small business owners, but also how it affects our economy. Welcome.
Hi.
I'm glad you came.
Thank you.
You are a Subway owner.
Correct.
So you employ how many people? What kinds of employees?
It'll be 10 or less per store.
Okay.
And mostly younger kids, high school, I'd say would be half. And then it could be any age from that point on, but commonly 20s, 30 years old for your shift leader positions or store manager positions.
So teenagers, college students
Correct.
Mostly.
Correct.
And then a couple of older folks to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's what you're telling me, okay. We have actually raised the minimum wage in Rhode Island every year for the past 5 years.
Yep.
And there's a proposal in the legislature right now to raise it again to 10.10. I know that when they do polls on the minimum wage, most of the people are in favor of it.
Right.
It makes sense to them that people get more money, right? Everybody wants more money. But I think we forget to educate people in what that means then, as far as jobs go and as far as productivity and progress in our job market.
Right.
So let's just explore, first of all, your business, and then we'll talk generally about the minimum wage and what other solutions might be to just constantly raising the minimum wage. All right, so let's just talk about, you have a small restaurant.
Yep.
Everybody knows it, Subways.
Yep.
Love the BMTs.
Yep.
So, and the meatball sandwiches. But, okay, so tell us, how it has affected you.
Okay, well, you've got X amount of dollars that come into a store, and over the length, I say the last 5 years, which is when the minimum wage has gone up, sales have remained flat or gone down a little bit. So,
And that's due to increased competition, the economy.
I'd say both. Increased competition.
Have your prices gone up?
Yes, they have. Not as much as, I mean, we're still a very, very good buy, a good purchase, a good value. But for instance, just due to minimum wage, the $5 foot long is now $6. And people come in, when we have it at $6, people come in and think it's a great deal. So if you're getting a little bit more money, but the cost of everything going up, I don't know who's actually making more money. I think where the deception comes in is, and why people obviously think more money is good, is cause without effect. People picture, I'm going to make all this much more money, and I'll be able to still go to a particular department store and get that $5 blouse. I'll be able to go to a fast food restaurant and get that $5 sub, which that's the effect.
Yeah, everything starts rising, right?
Yes.
I mean, I know you say the $5 foot long went to $6. Part of that is the cost of the wages. Part of it is the cost of the other things you have to buy as well,
Correct.
right? I mean, I've been to the grocery store, so you're not getting it at 1990 prices. Your ingredients, you're paying today's prices for them. So
Correct.
and that's driven also. So those prices also have a higher minimum wage in them.
Correct. It's the folks who pack the turkey, I'm assuming, the folks who do whatever it is that has to happen to get my store to operate, the products, the services. For instance, the fella that comes and maintains the equipment, he's got 2 workers. They were making approximately $11 an hour, but they're not very happy anymore because minimum wage is going to go to $10.10. So why would you want
Sure,
to
they can
be
go to a fast food restaurant and make that, yeah.
Yeah, you want fries with that? Give me $15 an hour. So he's finding that work productivity is going down. I find work productivity is going down in my better employees. Work ethic is work ethic. But when I've got a shift leader, per se, making $9 an hour when it was $7.40, so now that it's $9.60, that person gets $10.50. But now it's getting to a point when it goes to $10.10, I just can't afford it. So what do? Everybody gets paid the same now. And so the person who does more for me has more responsibility, that older person, that person in their 30s, doesn't want to work for minimum wage. But
Right.
in theory, if $7.40 was still minimum wage and they were making $10 an hour, they're making $2.60.
Sure, they'd feel like they had
feel like
accomplished
it.
something, they'd made
Correct.
progress.
And you don't sit with your employees and tell them what you make or what you don't make. They, like the government, think I just got more money than I know what to do with. So they always feel like I could give everybody what they need. We all need to make more money.
Why don't you just raise prices?
I thought that was kind of funny because I tried to confront or speak with the people in charge down in Providence, and they suggested
People on
that.
the governor's staff.
They suggested that. And I'm saying, okay, so what's the point? People can't afford to buy stuff, so let's pay them more money. Great. So let's pay them more money. Effect, everything costs more. If you get $1 more an hour and something has
And everything else goes up $1.20.
$2, $1.10,
Yeah,
you're actually making less money.
that's right.
Now,
So in effect, it kind of becomes an indirect tax. The minimum wage makes everything go up. It's an indirect tax
Correct.
on the economy.
correct.
Right?
That's all it is.
And so people are making more, but they're paying more for everything that they
Right.
buy. So what's the point of it?
You know, and when I spoke to the powers that be and said, well, if you're going to raise it and you want to get more money in the economy, make it pre-tax dollars. If you're going to go from 8 to 9, get them $40 at $8 an hour, and then the last dollar, Give them $40.
Oh, that wouldn't work because the government always needs more money.
So
Never stops needing more of our money.
Correct. And that's all I'm finding out, that if you're going to get $15 an hour, you're going to take home 10 and the government gets 5.
Well, let me ask you this. You're wealthy, right? I mean, you own a company. You're a small businessman. Aren't all small businessmen very wealthy?
People don't go out of business at record rates because we're just tired of making so much money. Truly, they imagine what we make, and it's a struggle to run a tight ship. And then you end up having to let someone go because you can't afford 10 employees, so 9 has to be there. And you have 1 less person when you'd like to have 3, you have 2. Customer service suffers, but inevitably 1 person has lost their job directly from the increase of minimum wage.
Yeah. I don't know if you're willing to kind of give us a figure. Do you make $250,000 a year on your subway?
Much less than a third of that.
No, in other words. No. And you're right. At some point, it just becomes diminishing returns, and that's when companies go out of business.
Correct.
Because it's just not worth it anymore.
Correct.
All right. We're going to take a break right there, and we'll be right back.
Call me a cynic, but my reflex is to be suspicious of any measure that flies through the House and the Senate this early in the session. Our new Rhode Island statute requiring the Secretary of State to provide online voter registration to any and all who wish it is just such a measure. So, is this a good law or a bad law, you ask? You know what? I haven't the faintest idea. Are you kidding me? Online everything is clearly the way of the future. The faster and cheaper we can facilitate a common public transaction, the better we will serve the taxpayers. Still, with the example of the Obamacare website rollout fresh in our memories, and with the excruciating cost and lethargic pace of the healthcare RI site that was supposed to support it, and with the 10-year fight we've waged at the Rhode Island DMV to get a software and hardware upgrade so we can speed up customer service at the registry, I really do have to see it to believe it. When ATM cards first appeared, everyone understood that they'd increase convenience and decrease cost, but many didn't trust the security of this newfangled process. At least we were comforted that the banks issuing these new tools were powerfully motivated by the profit on the one side and the concern they'd lose business if it didn't work on the other. That sort of thing hasn't been a regular motivator of government bureaucracy, though. And in the case of voter registration, the downside risk of failure is election results that no one believes. What if hackers registered everyone in the Toronto phone book just for yucks? Few of those Canadians would actually make the trip here to vote. But wouldn't that leave a question in everyone's mind about who else was improperly registered and did vote? The Secretary of State got what she and the governor wanted. I hope she will be as fastidious about seeing that we get what we want. A fast, fair, accurate way to do what we all know has to be done going forward. Are you kidding me?
Welcome back. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have with us Doug Ouimette, who is the owner of a Subway. He's a small businessman.
Yep.
And you're struggling with minimum wage increases. I think in the last segment we made sure everybody knows that you're not swimming in the dough. Right? You're just making the dough, right? And trying to bake it, right? We were talking about minimum wage. When it goes, all right, so I guess for the people I think we need to educate people about kind of the corrosive effects of this.
Right.
And I think I'd like to talk about that a little bit in this segment. In the last 4 years, we've raised the minimum wage every year.
Yep.
Every year. So it started 5 years ago, I guess, at $7.40. If we increase it this year, it will be $10.10. That's a 36% increase.
Yep.
That's 36% raises over the last 5 years. Do you know anybody in a skilled position who has got 36% increase in the last 5 years?
I almost don't know anyone in skilled positions, possibly who've gotten raises at all in the last 5 years.
I think they're lucky if they've gotten 2%
Correct.
a year.
Yep.
Not, what would that be, like 5%, 6%, almost 7% a year, 6% a year?
Yep.
Nobody's made 6 and 7% raises a year.
No.
Nobody has. Seriously, people with degrees and incredible skills are getting 2%.
Right.
If they're lucky. So what has that done for those people who have gone to maybe CCRI, gotten a 2-year degree so that they have a skill that's marketable? Have you seen any impact in that in your area?
Well, actually in the medical field, a CNA is a nice step into a good ladder type position.
Sure.
You can become a CNA with I think it's a 2-year degree or even less, and make like $11, $12 an hour, best I understand, and some of the better wages would be as much as $13. That's a very common scenario
Kind of
I
entry
see.
level into a skilled profession.
Yes, I get girls that come out of high school and say, you know what, I'm going to be a CNA and someday, so you wonder whether to hire them or not, but you always end up with a good motivated worker, so you do. And they work for you, they put themselves through school, and they go do that. And you never see them again, but I'm happy for people who want to better themselves.
Sure.
But lately, or recently I should say, I've gotten 2 employees come back from being a CNA. They see it going to be $10 an hour and shooting for 15, and they feel like, and this is exactly what they've explained to me, why do I want to take care of elderly folks in a nursing home,
Wiping the chins.
keeping them clean, whatever it is, for $11, $12 an hour when I can make $10 saying you want lettuce on your sandwich? Do you, or do you want fries with that, per se?
So it's breaking down their motivation to actually improve themselves, because
Right.
doing more pleasant work, they
Right.
get paid the same.
Right, and just even within the small body of employees that I have, per se, when it was $7.40 and I paid a shift leader $9 and I paid a manager $10 maybe. I mean,
Taking extra responsibility on. Sure.
correct, and they're naturally better workers. People's work ethics are what they are. I don't care what you pay them. I've been doing this long enough to know that. So now, let's say minimum wage is $10.10. It's basically what everybody's been happy making what they're making, including my shift leaders at $9 and $10 an hour. But now they're not happy because my shift leaders are making minimum wage. So now
And you can't afford.
Oh gosh, and
What does $1? So we're increasing the minimum wage by $1. What does that mean to your bottom line?
if you have, say, 10 employees or less, and you increase minimum wage $1, that's $20,000 a year that adds to my working capital to pay
Operating
that.
costs.
Operating costs, thank you very much. So what that actually is, if you have 10 employees, they're each making $20,000. That's paying an invisible employee. That's actually a whole
nother
person.
job.
So you've got a choice to make. I can let someone go, which I have had to do, and now where I wish I had 3 folks, I have 2. So customer service,
Slower.
yep,
Yeah,
pays.
they're not as happy.
People are looking at their watches during lunch hour, and they might not come back. And business has gone down. That could be another one of the reasons why business has stayed flat or gone down. We talked about it as an economy or competition. Maybe the level of service, we're working twice as hard, and the service probably is 90% of what
Not
it
as
used
fast.
to be.
Sure.
So,
Fast food is supposed to be fast, and if it's not, you might go somewhere else.
right,
Yeah.
and I've also noticed that the folks who,
But you can't afford to keep paying them more because you can't raise your
Right.
you can't raise your prices.
so if it
The
takes,
cost of your ingredients is going up. You really can't you can't make up for it. So it just keeps deteriorating the business.
Yes, and I don't want to become mathematically complicated here, but if you make $200,000 for your employees, that's payroll. Believe it or not, on $500,000, you have to make $500,000 a year for me to make 20% of that.
Okay.
So you get $200,000 for employees and $100,000 for the owner.
And the rest is taxes and regulations.
Food and service
property
and
taxes and all that kind of
rent,
stuff.
electricity. You pay now $20,000 more to the employees. Well, now they've got $220,000 to so-called put in the economy. But now I have $80,000. So there's still $300,000 going into the economy, but actually less because now that money has gone from me to them and it's taxed again.
Sure.
Okay, so now let's go from...
More taxes come
Let's go
out of
from
the higher
7 to
wages.
8, cost me, I'm down to 80. Let's go from 8 to 9, 20,000 more. I'm not making any more money. This money just doesn't fall out of the sky. There's just a certain amount of money.
Yeah, because wages rise doesn't mean profitability rises. You're not getting more customers
I'm not
because
getting
you're
more customers.
paying more wages. You're not being able to raise your prices because you raised wages.
Correct.
You're not getting more productivity from your employees because you raised wages. You're just simply raising wages.
Right, and
The business is not growing.
the value of my business, you spend $100,000 or $200,000 to open, hoping to get that money back, and then maybe someday sell it or hand it down to family or whatever. It's now worth about a third of what it was. If you have a business making $100,000, you can sell that for $200,000. Easy.
Sure.
Now it's making 80. So you think, let's do the math. I can get 160 for that. No, you can't. Because now there's less and less folks. So now make it down to worth, it goes up to 1010. The business is now worth $50,000. It's worth nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to buy a $40,000 or $50,000 job.
No, they don't. And clearly, your employees don't want to have that either. They want something a whole lot more, right? But that comes at a cost. It comes at a cost to our economy in that instead of using that $20,000 to grow another entry-level job for high school kids, which is what most of your employees start at, we've eliminated it.
Right.
So a kid is sitting home playing video games instead of learning the skills they need to be a good employee.
Right.
A better employee, being there on time, taking responsibility, working with customers. It's just not the way to go.
No.
At any rate, we're going to take a break right now and we'll come right back.
RI lawmakers are seeking answers in their failed slogan effort. That's right, we're going to discuss how to be cooler and warmer again. Are you kidding me? Of course not. You know I can't let this go. I miss Rhode Island, for heaven's sake. Hold on while I get my sash and my tiara. Give me a second here. Alright, that's better. So by now, we all know that Rhode Island is scrapping that infamous logo and personnel changes have been made. The Secretary of Commerce, Stephen Pryor, told the House Finance Committee that there has been a tremendous amount of good work done. He knows it, but it's been eclipsed by the mistakes that were made. Well, yeah. But I am super interested in knowing what those good works were. Maybe that includes lining the pockets of out-of-state consultants, bringing awareness to the country of Iceland. Maybe the good work was uniting the entirety of this state against a common enemy. But that common enemy shouldn't be the leadership of our state. Governor Raimondo is even asking for another $5 million for the year that begins this July for continued tourism marketing. One step at a time, Governor. Let's get together that firm timeline that the Finance Committee is looking for that shows what happened, when, and who okayed the project. But you know what? Things could be worse as far as our marketing program is concerned. We could live in Nebraska. And that isn't an attempt to make a joke about Rhode Island being better than Nebraska, because I've never lived there and I'm sure it's beautiful. But their lawmakers are halting production of a new license plate for the state that is supposed to be modeled after the iconic sower sculpture of a pioneer holding a grain satchel and tossing his crop seeds onto the ground. Remember, we're talking about Nebraska. I didn't know who that dude was either, but he stands atop their Capitol dome. The uproar in Nebraska is that the depiction of the state license plate has the gentleman holding the statue differently from the statue atop the Lincoln Capitol. Alright, that doesn't seem like such an egregious error. But apparently the inaccuracy gives a whole different view of sowing one's seeds, as it apparently displays some sexual connotation. Oh boy. That's bad. That's hilarious. But bad. So I say to you, Rhode Icelanders, who are upset about a slogan and a simple graphic of a sailboat, always remember, it could have been worse. Are you kidding me?
Welcome back to Common Sense. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and I have with me today Doug Ouimette, who is a Subway owner, and has been talking about the effects of minimum wage. As we finished the last segment, we were talking about the effects on businesses of the minimum wage. You have not created any new jobs as a result of the minimum wage.
No, and this year I have the least amount of employees I've ever had.
Okay, so you've actually had to get rid of somebody. Too bad for them, right?
Yeah.
I guess that's what our state leadership would say. Too bad for them, because we're gonna look like we're wonderful because we're raising the minimum wage for everybody. But it is too bad for them because they needed that job. Probably a young person saving for college or just getting their lives launched, right? Understanding work and making money and saving and spending.
And from my standpoint, I don't want to get rid of that person, not because I want to be a good guy. I truly need X amount of people in X amount of positions to produce the best customer service, to improve my intake and raise the income, but I am not able to do that.
It's diminishing return for you, and I think that's what you were saying.
Yeah.
Your take home has decreased now by $20,000.
Yep.
And at a certain point, is it worth it for you to stay open?
No, it's not. I mean, it's at a point where you can't even sell the business. It's like, why am I here? And there is so much. People do not understand how much you go through as a business owner with state regulations and sales tax. Wonderful thing, right? I'm an unpaid tax collector. I collect sales tax. If I don't get it to the state on time in the way they want it, to the exact penny, I am fined a sizable amount of money. But, my point to that is I understand, I collect it, here, it's yours.
Sure.
But I don't want that job. I'm an unpaid tax collector. So just from that, along with litter control is a tax where people throw stuff out their windows, and we all pay to pick it up.
And file a form about it, too. I understand. We have a wonderful regulation there. There's a lot of regulations, a lot of fees. If you close down, how many people lose their livelihood?
I would say on an average 10 per store.
In your store?
Yep.
But then how about your insurance man? How about the guy who fixes your refrigerator or does the work on your stoves?
Yep.
Right? How about the people at the grocery store where you buy your fresh produce?
Yep.
Right? They're all affected as well.
Correct.
So it becomes diminishing returns after a while. It's not just your employees.
No.
It's all the others that feed into your little store. You're an engine of growth.
Right.
The figures our employment figures are out for the month of February, and we grew 300 whole jobs in Rhode Island. Pretty tepid. I know the unemployment rate has gone down, but to me that's less important in Rhode Island than the number of jobs we're growing.
Yep.
Right? To me, raising the minimum wage is a failure of leadership. Yeah, I don't. You don't know whether you want to weigh in on that, but it is a failure of leadership. Yeah. And we go back to what you just said. You're an unpaid tax collector. You have all these regulations and fees that you're constantly paying. We need to take those off of businesses, off of our jobs creators, so they can thrive.
Right.
I got some figures today. In Atlanta, the youth unemployment rate is 45%. It's bad, right? Young people sitting at home on the sofa in the basement instead of being out starting their lives. In San Diego, it's only 26%. Still high, but much, much less, half What do you think the difference is?
Well, all I know is I'm getting more and more older folks looking for work. People very dependable. In unfortunate circumstances, they've lost their job. They can't find work. They're in their mid-20s, got out of college, got student loans. Literally, I can start yesterday, people with degrees, master's degrees. So, can work 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Who am I going to hire?
Yeah.
Okay, normally that person wouldn't even be showing up or would never think of working for minimum wage. So,
You know, my son was a waiter. He went to URI and became a waiter for a few years until he found a good job in Massachusetts. But I keep thinking we must have the most skilled restaurant force, most educated restaurant force in the United States here in Rhode Island. And the point I'm making is we're not fixing the basic parts of our economy, right? We're not lowering property taxes, which affects residential people as well as commercial people, right? We're not getting rid of the inventory tax. Why did Amazon, was it, or eBay go to Massachusetts? Because of our inventory tax. Why are all those distribution companies and warehouses just outside our border? Because of taxes. So we're not lowering taxes, we're not lowering regulations, we just keep making more of them. And now we're putting just another burden on job creators, which is this minimum wage.
yeah.
Instead of taking care of the regulations, the energy costs, the inventory taxes, the commercial taxes, which are often 50% more than the residential. You're a business guy. You're just a small guy, right? But you see the effects of it.
Yeah.
What if you were trying to put a manufacturing facility in Rhode Island or a high-tech company?
I can't even imagine the overhead. Per se, they grant National Grid, charge whatever you want, basically. I have a 1,000 square foot store. That's not very big. I don't know else how to describe it. If you have a 2,000 square foot house, I'm not even half as big as your ranch. Okay? I'm as big as your living room and kitchen.
So about as big as a small house, okay.
$1,200. My electric bill used to be $400 or $500. It's $1,200 now. When you keep adding everything up, and now all minimum wage really is now is an actual indicator. It's this serious. It's an actual indicator of when I'll be out of business. And okay, the landscaper who's got 3 guys that mow lawns did your lawn for $25. Now he's charging $75.
Because he had to give everybody a 36% raise over the last 5 years.
Right, and if something goes up 36% of some cost, you don't raise it 36% because you still lose the money.
That wasn't the only cost.
Oh, that's the problem.
Everything else went up too for him.
Yeah, so I just don't understand. And when I spoke to a fellow, I believe his name was Adam, down on the phone trying to speak with Gina Raimondo, and not asking her to go against her thing, but just would she listen to me and tell her what we're all going through? I ran on minimum wage and I'm not changing my mind. I just wanted to say...
But it's a failure.
It is.
Government is mandating something instead of government going out and fixing what's wrong in Rhode Island.
Right.
You make... Well, we're going to take a break right now and we'll talk about how people make more money in a thriving economy. And we'll be right back.
It looks like our state Senate has been hard at work enshrining ever more irony into our judicial code. This time, a group of safety-conscious senators have proposed that while they seem to have to allow you to own a firearm, they can at least prevent you from ever taking it off your own property. Are you kidding me? Of course not. Senate Bill 2565 was introduced by the team of Miller, Metz, Jabbour, Nesselbush, and Connolly. If enacted, it makes it unlawful to carry a rifle or shotgun in a vehicle or on one's person, visible or concealed, except at one's residence, place of business, or land. Cool. No provision for how one legally moves the item between those locations. No thought about how a gun owner might feel that it's his or her responsibility to receive instruction at a range from time to time in order to maintain proficiency. In fact, these aces of legislative guile simply ignore the question of what legal uses you might routinely have for a firearm in your home or business. In other words, they have created a proposed law that does not permit any Rhode Islander to ever actually use a firearm, which they are technically permitted to own. Remarkable. Whenever I see silly proposals like this one, it screams at me that the sponsors have exactly zero faith in the ability of their constituents to responsibly handle the authority they have been granted by our state and federal constitutions. They don't fear the firearms. They fear their fellow citizens who avail themselves of the right to have them. And they call that representation? Are you kidding me?
Welcome back. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have with us Doug Ouimette, who is a small business owner, runs a Subway, and has seen some hard effects of the minimum wage increase that we had last year, and certainly not looking forward to the one that they're proposing this year. You've actually had to get rid of an employee.
Yep.
Yeah, and it has hurt a lot. It hurt you, it hurt them.
Yeah.
It hurt them too,
Oh,
right?
yeah. In this day and age, kids actually, some of the incoming, the money's so tight that actually some of the kids come and some of their salary is actually helping pay bills at home. So I know when I let a child go, say a child, say a sophomore or junior in high school, I know personally that some of those children are working because the parents have lost their jobs and that little bit, and they cheerfully pitch in. I get some real good kids who, it's a family operation to get the bills paid at home for a very modest living. So I know when I let somebody go, it's a serious decision, and I don't want to, but you have to.
Well, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the last segment. Our economy in Rhode Island just isn't creating jobs.
Correct.
If a young person, instead of using his money for the date with his girlfriend or his insurance, gas in the car, saving for college, is actually helping support his family because they can't find jobs.
Correct.
Then again, government, the leaders in our government aren't doing their jobs.
Right.
They're not changing the things, the fundamental blocks of our economy that are ailing. Just this week, TEPCO, which is a propane gas facility in Providence, closed its doors, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Do you know why?
Because property taxes. Something like $1 million or something. 400%
increase in their property taxes. And government wouldn't talk to this company who was providing about 15, 20 people, not just people, 15 or 20 families with a good living, right?
Right.
Wouldn't even talk with them about, whoa, you can't raise my taxes 400% in 1 year. So they're gone. We didn't do the work of figuring out why our property tax is so high in Rhode Island. I think we're among the 7th or 8th, maybe 6th or 7th highest in the country. And we're not Hawaii, right? Really high property taxes. You mentioned the litter control. That's a fee you pay. You're going to pick up the litter around your restaurant.
Yep.
You don't need to pay a fee to somebody in the State House or in government to pick up litter. They're not picking it up. You're doing it.
Correct.
Incredible amount of regulations. There was a bill recently submitted that would have severely penalized any business owner who changed their employee's schedule within 2 weeks. What do you think that does to the restaurant business?
Well, I know in the restaurant business, it's something that happens on a weekly basis, and it's actually, when I hire somebody, we have a small group, we actually like to become family. My #1 rule at my store is the old kindergarten expression, plays well with others. as long as everybody looks on the schedule and says, oh, good, I'm working with him, I'm working with her. As soon as I start getting, I'm not working, I don't want to work with him or her, then, and that person, has to be let go. That slipped my mind there. I went off.
All right. Well, listen, I guess people in a thriving economy, which is what we want Rhode Island to be, what you want Rhode Island to be. You'll have more customers, they'll have more money, right? But in a thriving economy, people start at an entry-level position such as yours.
Yep.
They learn how to deal with customers, how to show up early, neat, clean, ready to go, right?
Yep.
And once they've gotten those skills, then they look around and say, is there a better job? I'm sure you expect people to leave you for a better job.
Yep.
It is sad if they stay with you forever, quite frankly.
Correct.
Because you want them.
Yeah.
You're entry level. You want them to find that better job. In our economy, they can't find it.
Right.
Right? When you get to that better job, you learn more skills, then you get a promotion. Or because you're more productive, you get a better raise. That's not what's happening in Rhode Island. If we're constantly forcing business owners to pay a higher minimum wage, it means we as elected officials aren't doing our job of taking the burdens off of you, so you can grow a job. Right? So that somebody who has a higher level skilled job can grow another job and pull that person up.
What's kind of funny, along with all of the folks who are pushing for this, all of the representatives, et cetera, wherever in each town, it's kind of funny. I'm good friends with a couple of representatives from Richmond, Rhode Island, and something they didn't even think of: the little town and city programs hire the young kids. That's probably the number one
especially
job
for summer jobs.
Yeah, for summer jobs. Didn't realize, oh shoot, we pay minimum wage. And their programs weren't budgeted for this. So actually, we're losing some programs.
Sure, for 10 kids, it's $20,000. It's not in their budget.
Whether it's soccer, youth soccer, Little League. Little League's paying drastically. It's quite a huge thing in Rhode Island, Little League. And yet, fall ball, I could go on and on and on. But it is kind of funny, and I want to look at them and say, you didn't even think of that. And I'm supposed to hopefully hope you understand what I'm going through. And you don't even understand what you're going through. So yes, I really sit back and try to think of who this helps. And all I can actually truthfully come up with is it's increased tax revenue. That's all I can come up with. The more someone gets paid, the more taxes they pay.
And we've already stated that government can never get enough money. But I also think, do you expect your employees to support a family on their jobs with you? No.
It was never created for that. Even when I interview someone.
Entry-level fast food jobs. And I think it's sad when our elected officials are saying families have to support their jobs, people have to support their families at minimum wage. No. If we had a thriving economy, they start there.
Right.
Especially our immigrants, they have to start somewhere. They've got to learn English. They've got to learn the way we do things over here in America, right? But once they've got that under their belt, they should have another job to go up to. I would never expect somebody to support a family at minimum wage. Again, we're killing off jobs with this move instead of doing the hard work of removing the regulations and the tax reform. There is a tax, and I think you had mentioned the earned income tax credit. And I don't know if people know what this is, but this is for people who are working at minimum wage jobs, and it allows them to realize more money in their pocket.
Right.
I fully support it. We're trying to raise it this year. It helps the working poor much, much more than a raise in the minimum wage.
The single parent per se, yes, it does. It helps all the right people. And I know I brought up this statement, if you want to get more than $1 an hour, believe it or not, work 5 more hours a week. And the response I got was, work even more? If you worked 5 hours more a week, you would get $25 more. That's more than 50 cents an hour. That's, I mean...
All right, listen, I'm going to have to stop you. Our point is that government needs to do its job and really repair the foundational blocks of our economy. Until we do that, minimum wage is just going to kill off jobs.
Yep.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
There are countless studies that claim to help us find a place to retire from the working world. I think I have looked at most of them. But recently I came across a study that put a different slant on the retirement search plan. They focused this study on where you might want to be just before you retire. It looks at the challenges facing a 45 to 64-year-old getting ready to move on to retirement. The motivation for the study is financial. The good folks at LPL Financial thought this kind of a study would help its thousands of financial consultants provide better guidance to their clients. This is a big company serving $485 billion in retail assets. Big, so they have lots of loot to put into a study. They decided to look at all 50 states using 6 broad categories that they claim represent retiree desirability and health preparedness. They chose financial, healthcare, housing, wellness, employment and education, and community quality of life. Within each category, they looked at 4 to 6 diverse subcategories to provide depth and balance. For instance, in the wellness category, they looked at obesity rates, physical activity, and percentage of smokers, plus other stuff. For each subcategory, each state was assigned a score based on the state's metric in relation to the national average and the distribution of state-level data. Basically, all the categories were weighted, resulting in grades A through F for every state. Thinking about this, I wondered what we all would want to know to help decide where to live approaching retirement. What kind of things would I look for? These are the kind of things our elected representatives should be thinking about as they manage our state's affairs. So how did the LPL folks do selecting areas of interest? Let's take financial. The importance of a state's fiscal health ranks high across all surveys of pre-retiree preparedness. The study measured cost of living, median household income, private sector retirement assets, state pension funds relative to pension obligations, and lastly, tax burden. Ouch. Healthcare. Here they looked at discharges from ambulatory care, sensitive conditions per 1,000 Medicare enrollees, healthcare expenditures, the percentage of 45 to 65-year-olds covered by health insurance, and so on. In housing, they measured home healthcare costs, home ownership rates, median home price list values, and nursing home care costs. The community quality of life category looked at the social factors like the percentage of mortgaged homes in foreclosure, percentage of population living in poverty, and of course, crime rates. The employment and education category looked at what happens in the 20 years before retirement as we earn enough money to retire. Employment offers benefits beyond daily pay. The 401k, pensions, health insurance, and health savings accounts. Now, the last category of wellness looked at personal habits and the tendency as they impact the last years of working and then retirement. The subcategories here were estimated remaining life expectancy for 65-year-olds, the percentage of adults age 65 plus diagnosed with diabetes, the percentage of adults 18 plus who are physically active, the number of smokers, and lastly, obesity. All the categories, including subcategories, the authors could get at from national and state databases. The overall state grades included 5 A's, 10 B's, 20 C's, 10 D's, and 5 F's. Top 5 states with the A grades were Virginia, South Dakota, Wyoming, Michigan, and Iowa. No Florida, you notice. How about the B group? Well, Massachusetts made it here at 14th, with 3 A's, a B, and 2 D's. Okay, let's end the suspense. Rhode Island came in 36th. The company did the first study last year, 2015, and another for 2016. So we have 2 years to see any trends. Rhode Island dropped to 36 because our healthcare grade dropped from an A to a B. The remaining grades in Rhode Island were financial D, worth 35% of the overall grade, wellness C, worth 10%, employment and education a B, worth 10%, housing D, worth 15%, healthcare B, worth 20%, and lastly, community quality of life C, worth 10%. our finance and housing grades skewed the overall grade a whole bunch. So if you are looking for a good place to spend your time in pre-retirement work, there are 35 other states that did better than we did. Now, imagine the number of financial consultants, journalists, and viewers of Common Sense on YouTube who have formed an opinion about Rhode Island. Wouldn't it be grand if we tackled each of these subcategories with the purpose of improving our score when they do this study again in 2017? And you know they will. Thank you for watching, and God bless.